Well, hi, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to show you a very simple modification to your park zone floats to help prevent water from spraying into your prop while you are taxiing. This is not an original idea from me. I basically took the idea off of the new park zone timber, or the E-Flight timber, and it looks like a really neat idea, and I'm going to give it a shot on here. Obviously, materials you're going to need, you'll need your floats. You'll need a straight edge. 2 is a little easier to work with. This is the critical part. This is a piece of vertical blind. You can pick some up at any home improvement store. But what I would recommend, instead of buying a big package and spending too much money, try calling around to some blind companies in your area and see if they've got a little scrap you can buy for cheap. It's very flexible and it's easy to work with. You're going to need a pencil, your little rubbing alcohol possibly, some Formula 560, and hot glue. That's all the ingredients. So let me show you what I've done here. First of all, it'd be easier to take your floats apart. I have chosen not to because I use the Formula 560 as kind of a Loctite when I have screws going into plastic to ensure they don't come out. These are nice and solid. I don't want to take it apart. It's your choice. If you have new ones, you have no problem. If you have used your floats already and might have a little residue on them, simply take some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel and clean off the area where these are going to be applied, which is within the first 6.5 inches of the nose on the inside of your floats. So the first thing you want to do is take your piece, and I've already done some work to help expedite matters. Take a piece at least 12 inches long. Make a mark at 3/4 of an inch on one end, 3/4 of an inch on the other end, and scribe yourself a line with your pencil. I happen to have a 6-inch scale right here, which that's how long I'm going to make these. And make a mark, do that twice, and now you have both pieces laid out. And then, oh, I'm sorry, one thing you're going to need is a pair of good scissors, nice sharp scissors, and I suppose you could do this with a razor knife if you want. And then just go ahead and cut out both pieces. Let me back up just a second. You can do this later, but I did it now. From that 3/4 inch line, come back towards the edge a 1/2 inch and make a mark. And do that on both ends. Put your ruler point to point, and then do the same thing on this part right here. And the reason I'm doing that is that's what's going to help me make my arc. I've already made one piece, and essentially what I have is a 3/4 inch piece here. There's the 1/2 inch I came out, and then I'm going to go to the center here, and I'm going to go from that 1/2 inch mark to the center on a nice gradual arc that happens to wind up planing with the inside curve. Let me get that lined up properly. Just like that. And that's going to give me a 1/4 of an inch that is going to hang down below the bottom of the float itself. Okay, now we can proceed with cutting out the pieces. And I'm going to cut this at the 6-inch, well, that's actually the 12-inch mark. And now I'll cut it at the 6-inch mark. Just like that. Now, I've got my 1/2 inch mark in from this edge over, and I've made a center mark at 3 inches on both pieces. And I'm going to cut a very gentle arc. That's a little steep. And just be patient, just go slow. And quite honestly, this doesn't have to be precision. It's not like a milligram or two is going to make any difference to the flight characteristics of your plane. At least it's not going to bother me. You can get as anal about it as you want. And there's my rough shape, and you can still see it's not quite perfect. It's got a little bump right there, but I can fix that. And this is where sharp scissors come in very handy, because you can bite right in where you want to bite in and take off what you want to take off. Now once you have that cut, you want to test it. Now what I've done is I've taken a good rough idea where the inside of this, where the outside of this radius right here is, and I made a mark a ½ an inch from that point on both pontoons. Now I'm going to show you what these marks are for in just a second. So then what you want to do is take your piece, place it on the ½ inch mark right there. Simply slide it back and forth till it's right on the money. And then take a look underneath until you have an equal reveal on the bottom. Then what I did was I made a mark with my pen. You might want to get a pen too for your ingredients. Sorry, it's not like you have to go out and buy one. And I made little dash marks so that when I hot glue this on, I've got a reference point that I can double check with here. And also when I'm putting my glue on, I don't get it too far out up into the float itself. They're just reference marks. And that looks like that's going to work pretty good. So when you get to that point, and this piece works, you get a piece that works. If it doesn't, you screw it up, cut another one. It's cheap. I simply lay it on here and line up the edges. And again, this kind of stuff is kind of slick, so you just work patiently and carefully, just like that. And go down just a little more there, and take your pencil. Mark both sides, and now you have two pieces that are going to be the same. Okay, now I've got both sides marked. You can see my front mark here, and these are my little top marks right along here, these little dots. I've done that to both pontoons. I have let my glue gun heat up very well. And now this is where you're going to want to work pretty quick, because you don't want this to set up in the wrong place. I am simply going to take a bead of glue, one along the top here, underneath my little dotted lines, staying away from the dotted lines so I don't get too much smooshed out up on top. And I'm going to put a little more in the front, and I'm going to come right across that plastic edge, get a little below the bottom. That's okay, we can take that off later. There we go. And now lay this on the front, matching up your lines. Get that set. Take a good look at it to see how your symmetry is. That looks pretty good. And just press it and hold it for as long as it takes. Probably about 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds, depending on how your glue is, how hot your glue is, and how long your gun's been on, and what kind of gun you've got. You know your stuff better than I do. Well, there's one. And that's what it looks like right there. Now when the water sheds off of here, it's going to hit that and hopefully peel it back into underneath the pontoon. And that's pretty strong. Now I'm going to go ahead and do it to the other side. Now to help ensure that these stay on, because you could possibly hit a piece of debris in the water like a stick, which I did right there yesterday, and cracked the fuselage or the bottom of the pontoon a little bit, and I've patched it with some epoxy. This is where the Formula 560 comes in. It's also called canopy glue. You've probably heard of that. A nice feature of this stuff is it dries clear, and just got a bubble going there. Just lay a bead of that right down into the intersection there where the plastic skirt meets the pontoon. And go ahead and be a little generous with this, because what I want it to do is seep down into the crack there that is left between the hot glue and both pieces, the pontoon and the piece of plastic. And I'm just going to let that sit down in there for a little bit and let it work its way down inside. Wiggle that back and forth just a little bit and let it sit for a couple of minutes. Kind of keeping it at the right angle so that it'll drool down in there and make a more solid bond. This is kind of hard to see, I'm sure. I can get you a good angle there. You don't want too much of that to be residual up in here, because that's going to kind of help defeat the purpose of deflecting the water away. Just take a little piece of foam after you've let it drool down in there and clean off the excess. And that's pretty much going to do it for me. Take your finger, this stuff cleans off pretty easy, it wipes off pretty easy. And I'll do that to the other side. And boy, as I look down at right there, I hope I can get that to show up pretty good. That looks pretty good to me. That's got a nice roll to it actually on the inside. And I think that's going to work to deflect the water. And if you get a little glue up on there, you can just pluck that off. And so now I think I am ready to let this dry. This glue is workable in about 3 or 4 hours. Just give it overnight. I mean, why mess with it? And if you want, you could probably put a little bit on your lead edges there, because that's where a lot of, well, actually those are going to be up out of the water. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. All right, well, quite honestly, getting a motor wet isn't going to kill it. I have some personal experience with that. Made a video about it. I'll put the video on the screen and you can just go to my channel and check it out if you want to. I had an onboard camera on this Sport Cub on the same pond I'm going to be flying on, and I augered in twice. The camera position did not work and I soaked my motor thoroughly. I was able to, luckily popped up on my floats and was able to taxi off both times. I actually flew directly after that, which really wasn't a good idea, but I did it. So it's not going to kill your motor, but if you can avoid getting water in there, why not? I really don't like the noise that it makes when the water is spraying off the pontoons into the prop while I'm running on the lake or the pond. So it's aesthetically unpleasing, and it's very possible that that water hitting the prop might be making the motor work a little bit harder, or, you know, I don't know. But I just think that whoever at eFlight came up with this idea, I think it's a good idea. I'm going to borrow it and I'm going to implement it. And good job. Thank you. Thank you for the idea. I will go out now and let's go see if I can get some good video. And all right, I just did a test spin and it looks like it's working. So let me take it out and I'll bring it towards us. You still see quite a bit of spray going off the outside of the pontoon, but not nearly as much into the prop. And I think that's going to work. Give it a buzz here and you can see it from the rear. A lot less spray on the inside than outside. See quite a bit shoot up after the deflectors position where they end in the back. That's pretty good. Okay, now let's see if it flies. And seems to be flying with no adverse effects. Took off from the water with no problem. Let's see if it has any effect on a landing. I've got the wind in my face right now, so I'm going to have to do a go around. No problem. Okay, let's see it at a higher speed with the spray. And the spray is coming up pretty heavy near the end of the... I might actually lengthen the shields. Well, a lot of water going right up into the belly. A recap, you can see where the deflectors stop right here at the end of my finger, and the video might not show up that well, but there is a cascade of water coming up through here, but not in this area right here. So bottom line there, the deflectors work. I may just go ahead and extend one of these deflectors down here further, back to here maybe, but you know, I don't think I will. I got absolutely no moisture up in here whatsoever. Nothing. The spray starts to come back right in this general area right here, so yes, it does throw it on the battery box, but as long as you have your battery cover on, you should be alright. This was a little bit damp in here, not bad. The rest of the plane was pretty wet from about the struts back and just soaked right in back through here. However, the motor stayed dry, and probably extending these would prevent the battery box from getting hit as well. But the fact is, your electronics, you do have an ESC down in here and your battery connector, but the bottom line is your electronics are way up on top, right under the wings, above this section right here, and I don't think you have to worry about all that water hitting that, and it took off and taxied just fine. So the bottom line, I guess, with this thing, this little project is, these work as I'd hoped. It's very cheap, and it's pretty easy little modification. I mean, really doesn't take a whole lot. So, okay, I will leave you with another in-flight onboard camera video. And hey, thank you for tuning in, and good luck up there.